Now, Mets Talk Live, we keep it raw. Sipping on Henny, we breaking the law. Queens represent, bitches know the name. New York Mets, we bringing the flame. So raise your glass, here's to the Mets. Ballin' harder than the rest, no regrets. City feel rockin', the vibe's electric. Ain't no stopping us, we getting hectic. Riding with the crew, we do it right. Mets in our soul, we ballin' all night. Queens to the core, we bringing the ruckus. Shout out to the fans, we live in the touch. Playoff dreams, we stacking the wins. Mets Talk Live, let the madness begin.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Talk Live right here on the channel and, of course, on X. How is everybody Thursday doing so far? And we're getting so much closer until the Major League Baseball winter meetings. And hopefully, as all reports are indicating, that a decision will be made this weekend. And it's looking more and more likely that Juan Soto would be making his decision right when the winter meetings are about to start. And I think that's been clear for a couple of days now that that's going to be the case. But we'll talk about that later on in the show. We got a little bit more time. We have a sign-in for the Oakland or Sacramento or the A's, whatever you want to call them, as they sign former Met now Luis Severino to a 3-year, $67 million deal, richest contract given from the A's organization in franchise history. And now he is a Sacramento A. That was shocking. I don't think anybody thought that he would be playing for the A's right now. And man, I tell you guys, I wasn't necessarily mad about the signing. I thought it was far-fetched that Luis Severino was going to be back with the Mets. I thought it would have taken a lot for the Mets to bring back Severino. I don't think they wanted to go. I think they would have gave 3 years, but not for the money that he got. And it was a little bit over $22 million per year. He has an opt-out after the second year, which isn't a terrible contract. I just think the Mets could go in different direction when it comes to a righty that has a lot of potential, like Luis Severino did. And that's why, with this Severino signing, I do wonder if the Mets are going to be focusing more on other right-handers that are on the same, I would say, level, where they necessarily didn't have a good year, but still have a lot of potential, and there's a lot more value in guys that might be on the market, and we'll talk about those guys in a little bit. But if you haven't heard, Luis Severino to the A's for 3 years, $67 million. It's just amazing to me, to be quite honest with you. I don't think it's a ton of money, only because it was basically it was just $1 million over the qualifying offer. And he's basically got a guarantee for 2 years and possibly 3, but he does have an opt-out after the second year. So, if you look at pitching's expensive this year, guys. An average pitcher is getting $17 million. An average pitcher in Yusei Kikuchi got $21 million. And Severino, you can say, had better years than both of those guys and got, $5 million more than Montas and a little bit over $1 million more than Yusei Kikuchi. So what does this mean for the Mets? Well, that means a guy like Manaea is probably going to get close to $25 million, if not a little bit more per year for Manaea. A guy like, Walker Buehler, right, is probably going to get around what Montas got. Probably a little bit more than that. Maybe even get a Severino number per year. And that's where I want to lead to a little bit, because this Severino signing, a lot of people compared it saying that Frankie Montas is replacing Luis Severino. I don't necessarily believe that. I think Montas replaced Jose Quintana. And I do think a guy like Walker Buehler is going to be on the Mets' top of the free agent list when it comes to pitchers, a guy to replace Luis Severino. Now, some people can not be happy about that when it comes to, why don't you just get somebody that that can do it and that has done it in New York, and Severino showed that he can. But if the Mets can work and fix Sean Manaea to make him have a career year, and fix Severino, that the disaster he was as a Yankee, and basically made him have a good year with the Mets. Can they do that to Frankie Montas? Can they do? David Stearns talked about Frankie Montas and saying that he has the stuff. They believe that they can get him back to the level he was a few years ago, where he was a very good pitcher. Can they do that with Walker Buehler? Now, I think Walker Buehler is more coming back from injury more than let's fix him. And I think Walker Buehler is more of a better value, a little bit more of a higher ceiling, worth better value. And I know Chris was talking about Sport Track, talking about saying $4 million. There's no way. If Walker Buehler gets $4 million, then how the hell can guys that are probably not better than him get 17 to $22 million? I just don't see that. Somebody's going to give Walker Buehler a 2-year deal, or even, I could see maybe he would a prove-it deal, a 1-year deal for like close to the qualifying offer, if not a little bit more. Would I give Buehler 1 year, $25 million? Absolutely. Absolutely, because I think there's a lot of upside to him where you can see Buehler as a number 3 or a 4, but if he pitches close to what he was prior to his Tommy John, he's a damn sure number 2, and who knows, could be as good as a number 1 because he has that type of stuff. Now, I know the velocity still isn't there, but second year after Tommy John, I think is so crucial for a pitcher, and it gives him that next step up. Again, we have a guy like Zach Wheeler who, when he did come back, his velocity was a little bit down, but when you get further and further away from your Tommy John surgery, his velocity picked up. Zach Wheeler has been a better pitcher for the Phillies than he ever was with the Mets prior to his injury. So I would think that, and committee, I don't think that 1 year, $25 million is a steal for Walker Buehler. I think $25 million is, a few $1 million more than the qualifying offer. And I think that's just showing what he did in the playoffs. And people forget, right? People only look at, he didn't have, he came back a little late because of injury and didn't really have a great season. But in the postseason, you saw what he did against the Mets. You saw what he did in the World Series, closing it out, and the way he pitched. He pitched very well in the postseason. And this is a guy that I think can be what we've seen in the postseason during the season. Now, is he going to go pitch to a subpar 3 ERA? Probably not. But if you can get him to a 3.5 ERA, 3.4 ERA, I think he could do that. I just believe that when it comes to what Severino got, I don't think you got to pay Walker Buehler that much. I think you can get him. I think you can entice a Walker Buehler on a 2-year deal, right? I think there's going to be a lot of 1-year deal options out there for Walker Buehler. But if I'm the Mets, I would give him a 2-year deal. Give him an opt-out after a first year. Do a similar Manaea type of deal, right? Give him a good amount of money for the first year, and give him the option that if he doesn't have a great year, he can opt into that contract. If he has a great year, it benefits the Mets, and it's going to benefit him going back on the market. And that's what I think the Mets are going to look for guys that are going to be in that 3, 4, 5 role in the rotation, right? Like a Walker Buehler, like a Sean Manaea. And I'm sorry, guys, there's some people saying that, I'll put a list out on the top pitchers on the market, and Manaea's, they put on that market with Corbin Burns, Max Fried. I'm sorry. He's not that. Would I love Sean Manaea back? Yeah. As like a number 3 or even a number 2. I don't want Manaea and saying, he's our ace. Because do I think he can still be a solid pitcher? Absolutely. I think he can benefit the Mets greatly. But to think that he can do the same thing next year, I think it's a little far-fetched. Teams have the book on Sean Manaea now. They have a ton of video of his new mechanics, of the way he throws. They're going to adjust to him. Now, that doesn't mean they can hit him, but I'm willing to take him back, but not as a guy to say, Sean Manaea, we signed him, great, he's our ace. I'm not going to feel comfortable, even if you do sign Walker Buehler. I know somebody brought this up on X that say if the rotation ends up being Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, Walker Buehler, David Peterson, Frankie Montas, and say that's your top 5. Are you okay with that? I mean, could it be solid? Sure. I think it can be solid, but you're counting on Senga to be healthy and good. You're counting on Manaea to be what he was when he turned everything around last year for the Mets. You're hoping Walker Buehler gives you postseason Walker Buehler, not what you've seen during the season with the Dodgers. You're hoping David Peterson can continue to do what he did last year, and Montas to bounce back and to revitalize his career. So there's a lot of ifs in that rotation, even though if the guys can get to that ceiling that you want them to get to, you can have a really good rotation. But they're all question marks. And I think that's a bad way to go about going into a season with a ton of question marks in your rotation, especially when 2025 is supposed to be the year you go for it. I think that's a little bit of a dangerous game. I think if Manaea can be your 2 or 3 in regards to where you're going to put Senga, and you got your ace of the staff as a Fried or a Burns or a Castillo or a Crochet, I would feel more comfortable with a rotation that has an ace, because nobody believed that Manaea was an ace when we signed him. And can he become a really good pitcher like we've seen when he turned everything around, when he changed his mechanics around and basically changed his way, like he watched Sale and basically mimicked it? Or can he just be a good pitcher in your rotation? That's where I think Manaea is going to be. I think he's going to fall into that second or third spot, in my opinion. Yeah, CP, I know a lot of people have been talking about Budo as a starter. Why take him out of somewhere that he was very successful in? Like, what it leads to if you put Budo in the rotation is that now you have to go out and get another arm in the bullpen. And I don't know, like, I don't like to take something that has been beneficial for the Mets, and now you lose that benefit in the bullpen, throw him in the rotation for, Budo, for the little bit of experience he had in the as a starter, was pretty solid. But where is Budo going to lie in the 4 spot, in the 3 spot? And you're going to lose him in the bullpen. So that's another spot you have to fill. Now, I know you got Nunez that is going to come back from injury. That should be a big benefit. But why lose a strong arm in the bullpen? Because next year, let's say, not knowing what the Mets are going to do for the bullpen yet, you can have Buto, Nunez, Diaz in the bullpen. That can easily be your 7, 8, 9 if you really want it to be. And then mess around with your, your 6th inning roll and, a long man and stuff like that. So I don't like messing with something like that where, Budo is, unless you were projecting Budo to be an ace or a number 2, then I would take that chance. I don't think he can be that. I think he could be a number 3 at best and probably a number 4. So am I going to risk losing him out of the bullpen and throwing him as a starter just because you could throw him as a starter because that's what he was before that? It doesn't excite me. Especially when he got Sproat, who's a big possibility coming up sometime during the season. If he shows what he can do in spring training, who knows? He might be ready to go in May or June. So, yeah, I don't know. And that's another thing, Carlos. What you have to watch out for is, are they going to have an innings limit on Buto? If they do, why throw him in the rotation? Like we talked about this last year with Christian Scott, right? They were limiting his innings, yet the guy can be pitching lights out and you're taking him out of a ball game. Like, I just don't like that at all. Like, that's why when we were talking about during the season, if Christian Scott was able to come back, maybe you throw him in the bullpen to limit his innings and still get the stuff in the bullpen. And I think if you're going to still limit Jose Buto's innings, why are you going to throw him in a rotation? Like, not only do you have to worry about Senga's innings, you got to worry about Buto's innings, and now you're going to have to worry about somebody else's innings as well. And now you're talking about a lot of question marks again in the bullpen. And I don't want to do that, because if you throw Buto in the rotation and then you don't go out and get a Walker Buehler because you throw Buto in the rotation, great. Now you got to replace Buto. And even with Buto in the rotation, even if he's good, you're still going to limit those innings. And I do feel like I don't want to go into a go for it year, as 2025 is supposed to be you're going for it this year, right? This was the year where they're supposed to make major moves. They got to make bigger signings. You got to get better players in here. I'm sorry, you can't have a rotation that we just mentioned and be excited about that. Now, would I be excited to see what Buto has? Yeah, but I don't want to go into it saying, "Oh, well, I can't wait to see what Buto can do," because it can go either way. It can be a solid move or it can be a bad move. And if he's not successful, that means you're going to probably throw him back into the bullpen anyway. And now you got to replace that spot. And you had opportunities to fill that rotation spot with a Walker Buehler, with, another pitcher on the market instead. And now if you go into the season with Jose Buto and you lost out on those other starters that we mentioned, and he's not successful, now what do? Now you're going to be talking about the Tyler McGills of the world. You're going to be talking about, Sproat, that is a top prospect, our number one prospect, but doesn't mean he's going to be good in our rotation. So I just really don't, I really don't understand. Let's see. Hold on one second. What did Chris say? Chris said Red Sox, O's, and Yankees could be for Fried and Burns, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chris, if they're going to stack arms, then, I mean, what are we doing here? Right? So you're not really going for it. You're basically throwing a lot, you're throwing a lot of crap at the wall and see what sticks. And I don't think that if you're going to get Juan Soto, if you're going to, re-sign Pete Alonso and, get Manaea, maybe a Walker Buehler, and then throw Buto in the rotation, great. I feel like there's too many question marks. I don't feel like that's going for it. Like, why spend $650 million or more for Juan Soto if you're going to, half-ass the rotation? Like, that, to me, it's pointless. So I just don't feel like you're helping one thing, but you're going to, have a lackluster rotation that has a ton of question marks. Because if anybody believes that Manaea is going to be ace of a staff, then, what are we doing here? I just don't. I just feel like it's extremely difficult to be excited about that. Like, yeah, the Juan Soto signing would be great, but if the rotation is very questionable, then I just don't know, what we're really doing here. You might as well not sign Juan Soto then. Like, you might as well go a different route and use the money elsewhere. I don't know. It's hard to figure out. And, Frank, I don't know what you're talking about. Chris is right on. I just don't see, yeah, I'm not saying I wouldn't want Buto in the rotation, but why are you putting Buto in the rotation? If you're going to put Buto in the rotation, that means Manaea and Buehler might be one of those guys that you're not going to get on this roster, in this rotation, you're not going to sign. So that means you're counting on Buto to be good, yet Buehler and Manaea will be good, most likely, and be solid. Buto's not projected to be a number one or a two here. That's a different story. If they believe that Jose Buto can be a number one or a number two, I have no problem with Jose Buto going in the rotation. But what are we really doing here? Jose Buto is a number three at best. Manaea is probably a number three, but definitely can be a number two. Same thing with Walker Buehler. He's probably a number three with his, could project to be a number two. So what we're doing here is filling a number three spot. Just sign a guy. And again, we're not talking about the bullpen either. You're losing an arm out of the bullpen who was solid for us. And now you have to replace that as well. Well, John, if they're going to stick to the 1 year philosophy, then good luck with that. Like, I think last year was the year to obviously do it because it was a quote unquote transition year. It just happened to work out for the Mets. They fixed 2 pitchers that were struggling the last couple of seasons. That's what they did. And that's a lot more luck than it is, strategy. I don't think the Mets, even as confident as they were with the pitching lab and their pitching gurus and their coaches, that Manaea could be ace type level, and then Severino can be a number 3. When both guys were basically on the fringe of being out of rotations, and Severino was basically a has-been. That's not a way to me to go about it. Like I said, you can't claim, and Stearns did this, and Cohen said this. 2025 was the year they're going to go for it. That's not a rotation to go for it. I'm sorry. Right? As much as I trust David Stearns and believe in Cohen, what are we doing here? You can't tell your fans one thing and then do the exact opposite with a situation where the Mets lost in the playoffs because their pitching fell apart. That was a fact, right? Manaea broke down at the end. Severino broke down at the end, right? Jose Quintana was your best pitcher. You can't go into that and tell me that you're going to be satisfied with the rotation that basically broke down, even if you're going on 1 year reclamation projects and guys that could have a lot of potential, but that's if everything goes right. So if we do make the playoffs, you're going to rely heavily on the offense, yet the Mets offense was, not great, but they did score a bunch of runs when they, in games. The pitching let us down. I can't go into the season and then, the Mets do make the playoffs. Say if the season is the pitching is solid, right? What are we doing here? We're gonna go into the playoffs facing teams that have better rotations. And when your pitching can't control the offense of the other team, you're not going to win. And I think that's the issue that many people are talking about. And, it all sounds cute and fun. Oh, let's throw Budo in the rotation. Let's sign, another guy with a 1 year deal and maybe a Walker Buehler. And then let's have some fun here and pray that Kodai Senga stays healthy, number 1. 2, hopefully he pitches well. And oh, by the way, Kodai Senga has to have everything go perfectly for him when he's going through the process of going into his 5th day to start. Everything has to be picture perfect for him to pitch and then go into the game, hopefully pitching well. So you have to worry about health with Kodai Senga, and hopefully he pitches well. And if you're going to get a Buehler or a Manaea, both of those guys, especially Manaea, you're hoping he can pitch like he did last year. But why do we just assume that he can? And that's the other thing that I worry about with Manaea, because, he's going to get probably $24 to $26 million per year. That's on, that's a top 2 rotation starters, salary there, contract. So you hope he pitches like that. But if he digresses just even a little bit, you're talking about a guy who can be a number 3. So here we go again. We got a lot of number 3s and 4s and 5s, and Kodai Senga that you hopefully can be solid enough to be a number 2. And where's your ace? Didn't we have that problem last year? The whole issue with the Mets, even though Manaea was great, was we didn't have a true ace. Right? When you needed Manaea the most, he fell apart in Game 6 of the NLCS. Now, I love Manaea. He was great for us. He was one of the reasons why we got there. But when you actually get there and you get to that game that you need to force a Game 7, you can't have too many question marks. What you can ask Chris and what guys, you were here during a lot of the Mets pre-games and post-games, right? What was the concern about the Mets pitch, starting pitching going into the playoffs? Are they going to break down with all the innings they had? Eventually, they did. I don't want to go into the playoffs not knowing if my ace can handle it. The grind of the playoffs. Give me a guy that I know can do it. Now, not saying that the Mets can't go out there and make a big trade at the deadline for a big starter. That's very possible. But we're going to take that chance and hoping we can get a starter at the deadline? Are we going to hope for that? And if we don't get it, we're going to go with the rotation we had. Right? Because Paul Blackburn acquisition at the deadline clearly wasn't beneficial. Like, he wasn't going to make the difference in the playoffs. I think we all can agree on that, even if he was healthy. So it's just unfortunate. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to catch up on the comments here. Well, see, again, I agree with you. What if he gets better? But again, what was that last thing in that sentence? A question mark, right? You can't ask what if he gets better, which is obviously a possibility. But let's ask the same thing. What if he gets worse than what he was? Then what do you do? Now you're paying a guy top 2 starter salary, and he's not giving you top 2 starter performance. Then what do you do? Now, I'm not saying that Manaea is going to be terrible. I think he can be definitely very, very solid for us. But that very, very solid at the top of your rotation don't do anything for you. It's going to probably help you get, through most of your season. But you're also getting guys, like, if that's the case, why not just sign Severino? Right? Why was everybody okay with not signing Severino? Right? We just assumed Severino is just going to be, we got the best out of Severino, let him go. Well, why can't we talk about, maybe we got the best out of Manaea? Right? I think you can say if you got to choose between Manaea and the top pitching free agents, you're going to go with the top pitching free agents or the top trade targets over Manaea. You just are. But I don't think you have to do that. I think you can sign Burns, you can sign Fried and Manaea, and you can just have a better rotation and a more confident and a more comfortable rotation. Like, there's too many question marks throughout the season and in the playoffs where me and Chris constantly came on in the pregame talking about the starting pitching. Is he going to break down? Can you trust this guy? Do you have to worry about him going deep into a ball game? Can he go deep into a ball game? There was too many of those question marks about the playoffs. And it sucks to think that, because I don't want to talk down about Manaea, because I love the guy. He was one of the main reasons why we got to where we were. But we also have to be realistic with the situation here. The Mets don't have an ace. Kodai Senga, you can't trust. He was hurt the entire year. People are talking about Kodai Senga like this guy's just going to remain healthy. And if he does remain healthy, pitch really damn good and can pitch like an ace. Now, does he have stuff like an ace? Absolutely. But he is a guy that needs everything to go right to pitch every 5th day. And then you hope he pitches well and remain healthy. Too many question marks, in my opinion. You can't sign Juan Soto and, save the Mets, no matter what offseason they have, position player-wise. Say if they get Anthony Santander and Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, whatever combination you want. And then you go half-ass on the rotation. Haven't this been the problem with the Mets not doing enough in every aspect of their roster? And then wonder why we fall short when we do? That's the issue. I'm sick and tired of going into a season worrying about the issue that we didn't solve during the offseason when you can. I'm not saying every guy on the 25-man roster has to be exactly what we need going into the season, because that's what a trade deadline's for. But why risk hoping for a trade deadline acquisition for a starting pitcher, top-line starter? Like, why do that? You don't have to do that. It's not like there was only one big pitcher on the market and everybody's fighting for him. Or if there's no big pitchers on the market, that you can get this offseason, all right, that's a whole different story. But there's guys available to get. And it would be very frustrating if the 4 guys that are, Crochet, Castillo, Burns, and Fried, if you don't get one of those guys, I'm going to say it right here. It's a disappointing offseason, even if you get Juan Soto and bring back Pete Alonso. It's solid, but why get that type of offense and then shit on the rotation? It makes no sense. Like, don't tell me you're going for it and then you half-assed another offseason. I think it's so stupid. I hate when the Mets team half-asses a trade deadline and it cost you, clearly, right? It cost the Mets in 2022. It probably cost them this trade deadline where they didn't want to trade any prospects to get maybe another very good pitcher in your rotation that can have helped out, hopefully in the playoffs, that you could have got. You didn't do. You got Paul Blackburn that at the end he got hurt, but that wasn't going to make a difference in the playoffs. And you do wonder, like, why half-ass? Again, they haven't done the season. The whole season isn't over. The rosters aren't set. For all we know, we can get a top line starter, and whatever combination of position players you want to get to help this lineup. Right? I think if you go for it in the offseason, that's less you have to do at the trade deadline. Right? I'd rather focus on bullpen acquisitions at the trade deadline than worry about, do the Mets need a starter? Do the Mets need another bat? I think it's better to acquire bullpen arms than you have to get a top line starter or another bat in this lineup. I think that's fair to say. All right, guys, let me just continue to look at the comments really quick. Well, Richard, that's not true. I mean, they did sign Max Scherzer. They did sign Justin Verlander. Right? You want to go back, Carlos Beltran, Carlos Delgado. Right? They've done this before. Mike Hampton. Right? They went big on players. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to work, but saying that they never went for big time players is wrong. It's not true. No, Richard, I'm not saying to sign Corbin Burns and another top line starter. I'm talking about a top line starter like Corbin Burns, and then you can work with the rest of the rotation like a Sean Manaea or a Walker Buehler. I'm not saying to go sign 2 top line starters. That's not going to happen. If it does, great. I mean, that would be awesome, but let's be realistic here. It's probably not going to happen. Right? But at some point, you got to, when you're going for it, you can't just get Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and, tell me Manaea and Buehler is going to be the missing pieces to this rotation. Now, I'm not saying it can't be a good rotation. I just don't think it's going to be good enough. Hold on, guys. I'm just reading the comments right now. Richard, Burns, Fried, and Soto. No, 2 top starters. Like, there is nobody that's going to sign Burns or Fried. Or Burns. Burns and Fried is not going to go to one team. It's just not happening. Classic, I understand that, I think Senga can be a number 2. I think if he's healthy, I think he can be a number 2. Right now, I'm not putting him as a 1 or a number 2 because I don't believe we don't know. Can he be healthy and can he have that same stuff and that dominance that we seen from him when he was healthy? We don't know that. That was a whole year and a half ago. That's a long time ago. All right, let's see. Yeah, explosive. The Mets aren't going to trade for Jacob deGrom. It's just not happening. I'm sorry. Like, it's way too much of a contract to worry about after this year. The guy, not even just Tommy John, he just doesn't stay healthy. What number is wearing for the Dodgers? That's funny. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to catch up to the comment. Well, Richard, if you think the Mets are not going to sign nobody, then the Mets aren't going to have a roster. It's just that simple. Richard, he signed 0 top position players. That's wrong. That's not. I understand what you mean, right? He was on the verge of signing Correa, but obviously that didn't happen because of medicals. Aaron Judge was never going to happen. George Springer clearly went to the Blue Jays because Sandy Alderson was also, you got to remember, Sandy Alderson was running things when Cohen first took office. Sandy Alderson didn't want to give George Springer an extra year. So that wasn't Cohen. Remember, Cohen, when Cohen wanted to spend big money, he did. You don't have the highest payroll in baseball and not spend big. And I understand position players, but we'll wait until this year, right? Let's see. If he, you would think he would sign one of the top right fielders, right? Either Soto or Anthony Santander, right? You would think he would sign Pete Alonso or Christian Walker. You would think, or one of the top pitching on the market. We'll see. Cohen is not Wilpon Part 2. Cohen hasn't owned the team for 6 years. It's been 4. And, clearly, Richard, you don't like Steve Cohen, yet in his 4 years of owning a team, he's made the playoffs twice in those 4 years. That's a fact. Traded for Francisco Lindor. And by the way, that counts as a big signing. He extended him. So that counts as extending a top position player. He is your MVP of the team. So yeah, that counts. If you don't want to count that because it doesn't fit your narrative, that's fine. Man, I'm not listening. I'm not listening to what indication has the Mets haven't looked at any starting pitcher, right? We have heard no leaks from the Mets. We heard Frankie Montas came out of nowhere, right? The Mets don't leak anything. I think there's too many reporters guessing here, and that has been the problem, right? Just go on the last 24 hours. Ken Rosenthal says that he didn't hear that the Yankees are going to get the last call from Juan Soto. And then, he also said that the Mets are the favorite. And then John Heyman says that he believes the Yankees are going to get the last call. Like, nobody knows their ass from their elbow. These are factual, legitimate reporters that have blown smoke up everybody's ass because they have nothing else to talk about. So they're going to come up with all types of scenarios because this is what this is. My opinion, your opinion is not much different than what Ken Rosenthal and John Heyman are saying, right? For the last 4 days, the Red Sox were the favorites. It's already a done deal. Then the Yankees are the favorites. The Blue Jays might have the highest offer, and now the Mets are the favorite. That's in about 4 days. So all that just spewing out tells me that they don't know their ass from their elbow. It's just that they're going on these MLB Network shows. They're going on podcasts. They have nothing else to talk about. So they're going to tell you stuff like that. I don't think they have any idea, to be quite honest with you. And that's a fact. And that is not saying that, I believe the Mets are the favorite or the Yankees are the favorite or the Red Sox are the favorite. If all the teams have offers over $600 million, that means clearly that, like they're just showing on MLB now, all 5 teams, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Red Sox, Jays, remain in the Juan Soto Derby. So that means all their bids are over $600 million. That was John Heyman yesterday. And then he went on a podcast today stating that he believes the Yankees are the favorite. 2 days ago, he went on another podcast to say the Mets are the favorite. So the reports can't be that different that quickly. It makes no sense. The fact of the matter is, I don't think Juan Soto has made a decision yet, to be quite honest with you. I think he has offers. Somebody's going to have a higher offer, right? I don't think all the offers are going to be the same. But if what you have heard was that the Mets are going to have the highest offer. But then you heard reports that the Blue Jays will. So we just don't know. We really don't. Mike, the Yankees are trying to add to their rotation. Well, they're trying to add to their rotation, but I'm gonna tell you this right now. They signed Juan Soto. They ain't doing much more in their rotation, right? They had a Zoom call with Max Fried. The reason why, and this is another tactic, right? Juan Soto and Boris are clearly trying to up the offer from the Yankees, right? Because everybody believes that the Yankees have a subpar offer compared to the Red Sox and the Mets. So what is Boris going to do? Try to up the offer of the Yankees, and the Yankees go, okay, great, we'll up the offer, but we're not going as high as you might want. So guess what? We're going to talk to Max Fried and Burns and Walker and Alonso, just so we can say, hey, we got a plan B going on here, right? I don't believe for 1 second that Max Fried or Corbin Burns are going to be a New York Yankee. I don't think the Yankees are going to sign $150 million for Max Fried and definitely not $250 million for Corbin Burns, even if they get Juan Soto. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Just not. Well, Music Man, that's what I'm saying, and I agree with you with that, buddy. Right? Getting Juan Soto, is going to be very helpful to get us to where we want to be, right? But it's not you can get Juan Soto, Pete Alonso in here, Juan Soto, Willie Adames here, whatever combination you want here, right? I don't believe now the Red Sox, excuse me, the Dodgers basically won without an ace. But then if you go into the postseason, Yamamoto stepped up, Buehler stepped up, even Jack Flaherty stepped up in the World Series. Right? They had a pitcher who was basically an ace of a staff. Buehler only a couple of years ago was the ace of the Dodgers. Yamamoto has the stuff of an ace, and Flaherty was, one of the Tigers' better pitchers, besides Skubal. So I think you have to get a top line starter here, right? It's not about the regular season that concerns me. Because the Mets are proven. Shoot, the Dodgers are proven. But the Mets, let's talk about the Mets here. You had Manaea, Severino, Quintana, Peterson, a combination, McGill, all combinations of that. With no Kodai Senga, the Mets were able to make the playoffs as a wild card team, get to Game 6 of the NLCS with basically no ace. Sean Manaea became very good, but he was our de facto ace because, well, that's the best we had. Right? But at the end of the day, just look at the Mets series against the Dodgers. Who stepped up? Yamamoto. Buehler. They stepped up. The Mets had no answer for those pitchers in their own rotation. Because who broke down? Your ace broke, or de facto ace in Sean Manaea broke down. Right? So I think you need an ace when you get to the playoffs. That's where it gets important, right? Our goal is to make the playoffs, right? I think the Mets can make the playoffs with a rotation that I gave you with Manaea, Senga, Buehler, Peterson, and Montas. I think you can make the playoffs with that. But when you get to the playoffs, is somebody going to step up to ace-like caliber and push you through a playoff stretch and do the grind of the playoffs? Probably not. That's why I want a Fried, I want a Burns, Crochet, or Castillo. Guys that I believe that can be top line starters, that when they get on the mound, you have an utmost faith that he's going to give you the best chance of winning. And that's where I think you can lose out here. And that's the frustrating thing. And again, we all are speculating here, right? Even the reporters are speculating. I'm watching MLB Network right now as I'm talking to you guys. What is the issue right now? Right? They're still questioning who's the favorite in Juan Soto. Right? They're just about to talk about Corbin Burns. Right? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of suitors for Corbin Burns. right? You might see the Red Sox go after him, even if they get Juan Soto. So I just believe that if you get an ace, you can mess around with the rest of the rotation. You can go on a couple of one-year deals, guys that might have had bad years last year, and try to get them on a prove-it type of deal. Because when you got your ace every fifth day, he can be the stopper of a losing streak. He can be a guy that you go out there every fifth day, you're confident in. And that's important during the season, right? That is important. But what is the main factor is when you got that ace of a staff going into the playoffs, I know he's my game one starter. Didn't we question who's going to be the game one starter? In each playoff series we talked about, Brewers, Phillies, Dodgers, right? Is it going to be Severino? Is it going to be Manaea? There was even question. We had Kodai Senga start game one in the NLDS. Why? What was the reason? You see the point? The fact of the matter is the Mets couldn't even pick a game one starter because they didn't have a true ace, even though Manaea was so good. That's the problem. I want to go into a playoff series knowing game one, I know it's Corbin Burnes, or I know it's Max Fried, or Crochet, or Castillo. I need that guarantee in the playoffs. I know who is my ace, right? The Dodgers had guys that potentially could be aces. That Buehler was an ace. Yamamoto was paid like an ace. Those guys actually stepped up in the big moments. When it counted the most with Manaea and Severino, they just weren't good enough. Love those guys, but they weren't good enough. Let's see. Mothman, would I give the Mets a bad grade if they miss out on key guys? Key guys in the rotation, yes. I think you need one of the four guys that I mentioned in the rotation. Crochet, Castillo, Burnes, Fried. If you don't get one of those guys, I think the A is out of the question. I don't care what you do position player-wise. I don't care if you get Juan Soto and Pete Alonso here. You're probably going to get a B from me because that's a hell of a two acquisitions. You're bringing back Pete, but bringing back, and getting Soto, and they're talking about Corbin Burnes. Yankees, Jays, Red Sox, Giants, Orioles are main players in Corbin Burnes. Yeah, so yeah, I see. It's funny though, because you don't hear the Mets on anything, and I think that's kind of funny because they don't leak anything at all. So if the Mets don't get a top line starter and they get Juan Soto and Pete Alonso, am I going to be excited? Sure. That's a big offseason position player wise. But you're going to help your offense but hurt your pitching. I would probably give a B as a grade. I don't think it deserves an A. I think an A is getting a top line starter and the two guys I mentioned prior. Danette and Anthony, yeah, absolutely. Right? There's too many contradicting reports. Right? Again, 2 days ago, it seemed like the Yankees weren't going to go up to $600 million. Well, they wouldn't be in the running if they didn't have a $600 million offer on the table. Now, I know there's been reports that some teams, if not all of them, have opt-outs after a couple of years. That can be interesting as well when it comes to final offers. Herb, I do believe the reporters are making stuff up because they're coming on shows and podcasts every single day. You cannot find Morosi, Heyman, Rosendahl. All those guys are on shows and podcasts every single day. Their faces constantly on shows. And the reason why they're coming up with something because they're putting them on these shows and they have to come up with something. And I'm not saying that they don't have a little bit of information, but you can't, again, go back to John Heyman's tweets the last 3 days. 2 days ago, the Mets are the clear-cut favorite. Today, he said the Yankees are looking more and more like the favorite. 3 tweets ago, he talked about the Red Sox being on top. Like, those reports can't happen that quickly. I'm sorry. If Soto is so methodical in everything he does and thinking about, what he's looking at between organization, system, all that stuff, then it can't fluctuate that much. And there's no way teams or even agents is leaking out that much information for different teams, because at the end of the day, is it really benefiting his client overall in general? No. Steezy, no, I didn't say the Yankees have a subpar offer. I said the reports were that the Yankees weren't going to 600 million. Apparently, there was a $550 million offer, and they weren't going to $600 million. If you heard what I said after that, there is no way the Yankees would be finalists or on the list of teams that are still in the running if they didn't get the $600 million. They clearly did. They clearly upped their offer from whatever it was. The reports were they went to $500 million. If they're true or not, I don't know. But it clearly wasn't at $600 million, because all the reports and all the news that was coming out was that, all of a sudden leaks were coming out about the Red Sox being big time offer, the Mets are being clear-cut favorites, making the highest offer. And then all of a sudden, you heard the reports that Boris is trying to get the Yankees offer up. So clearly the Yankees had to up their offer, and they wouldn't be in the running if they didn't. So they did. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I said it. I'm saying the reports are saying that. And then clearly the Yankees are in the running to being a finalist for Soto, clearly. So they clearly over $600 million. I'm sorry. The Yankees can't be under $600 million and think they're actually a contender in Juan Soto. Clearly that's not the case. They are over, or at least at $600 million at the very least. It's just a matter of, I see what reporters aren't telling you, and I don't think they know, where is Juan Soto leaning? Now, of course, some people would say the Yankees because, well, he played there. But sure. But he's also, he played for the Yankees 1 year, right? He had no loyalty to the Nationals, where he could have signed an extension. The Padres, he also got traded from there. And, he said after the World Series that every team has an opportunity to sign him right after the World Series when they asked him questions. So I don't think there's any loyalty to the Yankees. Now, do I think he's not going back to the Yankees? I'm not saying that. I think there's more of a chance he goes back to the Yankees than the Red Sox or the Mets. I think that's fair to say. But I find it hard to believe that he's going to leave any money on the table, because this is a guy that turned down $400+ million from the Nationals, right? The Padres kind of hinted at an extension, but it never happened. The Yankees basically didn't even, at least the reports were that they didn't even they approached him about an extension. He didn't want to hear anything of it. So all these little stories about extensions never came to fruition. Why would he leave a penny left on the table to go to any team, for that matter? I don't think, if the Mets don't have the biggest offer, he's not going to the Mets. Same thing with the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers or the Blue Jays. I find it hard to believe he's going to leave a penny on the table, especially when your agent is Scott Boras, who had a terrible, embarrassing offseason last year. Boras is not going to let Juan Soto leave anything on the table. And I don't think Juan Soto has any loyalty to the teams I mentioned. Especially the Yankees. I don't think so. I don't think he's going to take $5 million less or $10 million less to go back to the Yankees. I don't believe that. Now, can I be absolutely wrong? Sure. But if he was willing to leave money on the table to go back to the Yankees, why didn't he sign with the Yankees already then? Because clearly they didn't have the biggest offer. Or at least that's what the reports were. And if the Yankees did have the biggest offer and he's leaning towards the Yankees and have loyalty to the Yankees, wouldn't he have signed with the Yankees already? So that's why there's a lot of contradicting reports here and a lot of different ways to look at it. And probably nobody's right, including myself. All right, guys, I'm going to continue to look at the comments. I'm trying to catch up here. There's over 530 people in the chat in the stream right now, so I just got to catch up. Original mindset says taking the J train. What stop though? Mindset. What stop? Well, again, I'm not going to call them cheap until the offseason is over. And again, I'm not shy about calling out the owner or a GM or my team in general. I'm not that, I'm not that type of fan that think my team does no wrong. I will call them out and I will not be happy. I tell you that right now. Yeah, Duran, I saw that. Yeah, and you know what's funny? Speaking of, the Mets situation right now, the Phillies are trying to trade Castellanos or talking in trade talks about Suarez, Castellanos, and Bohm. For a team that has been on the precipice of like making it and winning a World Series the last 3 seasons, why are you trading guys like that helped you get to that point? Now that's interesting. Now it depends on who you get back. But I don't know. It seems kind of weird to me. And speaking about the Mets and the NL East, that's interesting to seeing what the Phillies might do. All right, let's go. KT, you might be right. It might be Yankees over Mets, but if the Yankees don't have the biggest offer, I don't think he's going back there. I'd be shocked he leaves money on the table. I always felt that way. Well, Jay St. John, listen, I understand. Like, I mean, we just have to see, right? For all we know, the Mets do have the biggest offer, right? I think you can think that. Like, I think that Steve Cohen has been preparing, or at least watching or looking at this, because anytime Steve Cohen has talked about free agency, or especially last year in the offseason when they were talking about, this is not going to be a high priced free agent year. We're not going to get big time free agents. We're going to, methodically work this roster over and stuff like that, transition year and all that, as they brought up. He talked about 2025, and everybody knew that 2025 was Juan Soto being a free agent. He just doesn't say that and think that he's not knowing that he's going to try to do everything he can contract-wise to get Juan Soto here. I don't think Juan Soto is going to leave $40 million on. If the Mets have the highest offer, say if it's $40 million more than everybody else, you think Juan Soto is going to go to another team for $40 million less? I find that crazy. And, if I'm wrong, I call myself out. I'd be shocked. All right, here we go. All right, I'm still catching up on the comments, guys. I'm scrolling like crazy here. Well, KT, what's interesting about Boston, they weren't willing to pay Mookie Betts, who is their homegrown guy, MVP guy, one of the best players in baseball. And I know there was a lot involved during that Mookie Betts situation, because obviously John Henry, purchased Liverpool, the soccer club in Europe, and he was investing a ton of money in that soccer team and all that stuff. So a lot of the money was being used for the soccer club, and that was one of the big reasons why they didn't extend Mookie Betts and they traded him. So, but that doesn't mean that they can't spend money now. If John Henry clearly can have the money to cough up for Juan Soto. They do got Rafael Devers, who's a great player. They got Duran, who is a very good player. They got a lot of top prospects. I think they got 3 out of the top 100, in the top 10 of Major League Baseball top prospects, they got 3 guys. Now, again, prospects are prospects, but if you listen to the reports that, Juan Soto, when he goes into these meetings with the teams, are not just looking at, how much money you're going to give me. He wants to see, what are you doing with the minor league system? Are you going to, get me and get other players on this major league club? So, the Boston Red Sox have a lot of upcoming prospects, and they had a, they broke down at the end of the year, but that, they might, Juan Soto could really help the Red Sox, especially if you take him away from the Yankees. I can't see the Yankees lose Juan Soto and get better. It's crazy. So, I mean, this offseason is so unique. Ohtani was a unique offseason, but we all knew who was the real suitor for Ohtani. It was always the Dodgers. The Blue Jays were kind of like, okay, they're in it. They want him, but does he really want to go to Canada? The same thing with Soto in this situation. We heard that the Blue Jays would spend every penny to get Juan Soto to the Blue Jays, but he's not going to Canada. I'd be shocked. We all be shocked. So, oh man, it's crazy. So we talked about the Severino situation. I talked a little bit about Buehler. Can he be the Severino replacement? I think that's more likely than saying that Montas was a replacement for Sevy, when I think Montas was a replacement for Quintana. Also, the reports are coming out, and these seem more factual, since multiple reporters, Jeff Passan, said it, that the teams that are involved are those teams that we talked about: the Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays, and I think that's the 4, right? Dodgers, excuse me. Those teams are in the mix, and that Soto was going to make a decision prior to the winter meeting started. Technically, officially, the winter meeting starts Sunday, but we know it really gets going that Monday on the 9th. And with these upcoming shows on the bottom of your screen, we got Mets Hot Stove tomorrow. Me and Chris will be doing a Hot Stove tomorrow. Obviously, breaking down more of Juan Soto, talking about Severino. Who knows? We've come up with another couple of topics as well. And we're definitely going to preview the winter meetings a lot more tomorrow, since it's, a few days away from happening. So the Mets Hot Stove show is at 5:30 tomorrow. We're going to be doing winter meetings shows all throughout the winter meetings, from Sunday all the way until the end of the winter meetings. I think it's the 11th on Wednesday. And we're also going to be doing Juan Soto watch party shows, where we're probably going to do, there's going to be multiple shows per day, probably, since Boris and Juan Soto, are basically in California, you might get news at 11 o'clock at night, when it's only, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock on the West Coast. Even in Texas, what is it? It's a few hour difference than the East Coast. So, the winter meetings are in Texas. So it's a couple hours earlier. So, it might be midnight in New York or on the East Coast, and it's, it's 9, 10 o'clock, in Texas. So it's crazy. It's really, really crazy how this is all going to turn out. Good news, I am off from work Sunday and Monday. So Saturday there's going to be so many shows. It might be late shows where I'm just watching MLB Network all day, all night. And then if something breaks towards the Mets, boom, we're on. Or especially even if Juan Soto doesn't sign with the Mets, I'm gonna go live for sure. And probably a couple, me and Chris will probably pop on during that time. So it's so much to talk about, so much nonsense, and so many different reports that who the hell knows what are true. But what we do know is that the teams that are involved in Juan Soto are going to have their last-ditch effort over the next few days. Probably I think Saturday is going to be a big day, guys. I truly believe that Saturday, Juan Soto is going to sign. Like, you want to bookmark that. You want to hold my word to it, keep me to it, hold me accountable. I think Saturday, I don't know what time, obviously, but I think Saturday Juan Soto is going to sign. I think that Soto is going to make his decision on Saturday. So when the winter meetings officially start on Sunday, it's going to be all about the other top free agents and not Juan Soto. Obviously, the talk will be about where Juan Soto signs. What does this mean for the team that signs him? What does that mean for the other teams that missed out on Juan Soto? I believe Saturday is when Juan Soto is going to sign. And if you look at the dates here, right, tomorrow we got the Mets Hot Stuff show on Friday to the little kickoff the weekend craziness that might happen. Winter meetings show. I'm going to do a winter meetings show probably right after work. As soon as I get out of work, I'm going to set it up as I'm going to probably get out of work around 11, 12, whatever. On Saturday, I'm going to have a live show right away, like around 1:30, 2 o'clock, and probably take it into the next show, which is probably a Juan Soto watch party. Like, it's going to be so much going on, so much fun. It couldn't be a big disappointment where, look, somebody's going to be disappointed, right? There's going to be one team extremely happy getting Juan Soto, and the other teams that were fighting for him are going to lose out on him. And that's going to suck for them or us if it's the Mets, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to tell you that right now, it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's why we're doing all these shows, right? I think Subway to Shake, Anthony is doing a show at 7. My guy Chris is doing a show at 8, and he's going to have Hector on as a special guest to talk about all this fun stuff that's going on in the Mets offseason. So after me, you're going to have Anthony from Subway to Shake, and then you're going to have Chris on with Hector. So it's going to be a lot of Met shows tonight. And hopefully you enjoyed the show, guys. We had over 500 people in the entire time. If you're on X, guys, make sure you hit that link over to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It's always a pleasure talking to you guys, especially when it's a solo show. Obviously, you guys are heavily involved in a solo show because, if I just blab my mouth out and not look at your comments, it's going to be a boring show. So I hope I got to so many comments. It's hard to read hundreds of comments in a row, but I hope that I got to most and some that were you put out there, guys. And hopefully it was a good show. I think it was a pretty solid show because of you guys as well. It's going to be a busy next couple of days, probably around 3-4 days, heavy on Mets YouTube, all over the place with all the content creators. So make sure you hit that notification, guys. Make sure you hit that bell because this is the time more than any part of the year where you want to get notified when any of us go live with any breaking Mets news, because that's the only way you're going to know, unless you happen to click on YouTube and be like, oh, look, they're on, right? That's what you want to look for. Hit that notification button so you get a notification right away when we go live or post a breaking news video or a breaking news live for our New York Mets. Once again, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live Late Night Edition on this Thursday, a few days before the winter meetings, and hopefully the ending of the saga of Juan Soto. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Anthony's coming up in about 20 minutes. 8 o'clock is Chris with Hector for their shows. So make sure you tune into their shows. Tomorrow, Mets Hot Stove with me and Chris at 5:30. Winter meeting shows throughout the weekend from the 7th to the 11th. And a couple of watch party shows for the Juan Soto watch party throughout the weekend. Hopefully Saturday is the day where Juan Soto signs. We can really focus on the winter meetings with other players that we need to solidify the Mets roster. Have a great night, guys. As always, Mets fans, let's go Mets. And I'll see you tomorrow for Mets Hot Stove. Have a good night, guys, and we'll see you next time.
City lights in Mid dead at night, full of echo. Concrete jungle, dreams bust to grow. Mets in the air, chase glory, no fear. Broken backs, but hearts steer clear. OMG, the chaos, what a scene. Streets buzzing like a machine.